This club does an awful lot. There's a lot of pride here. We've seen a lot of things happen. And somebody joins a club and gets involved, they get real enthusiastic, get more involved, in many cases work up to be president. And just look around your table and see those few who have not been presidents in the past. It's so good that one of the strengths of this club is the activity that people do. Somebody gets real busy, they work their way up and become president, as I said. But we're going back to the 90s and get the thoughts of those. There are currently 7 members who are still with us that joined in the 90s. And just take yourself back. Before, we were meeting at a bar that's been torn down, but we were sitting at high cocktail tables and you could smell the smoke and it's still in the air.
Not because anything we did, was it?
Huh?
Not because anything we did, was it?
No. But, so, and we were, to raise money, we were selling apples, we were selling fertilizer, we even had flea markets. And that's what we were doing. Women had just been approved at the end of the 80s to come into the club. We sort of take it for granted. That was a big deal back then, really big deal, to the point where some people quit because they would not be in a club with ladies. But our first member here today who joined in 1990 was Jim Jones. Jim, you want to say a word or two about your thoughts when you joined?
When I joined the club or when I joined Rotary?
Well, two of them both, because you were the transition.
Well, I joined Rotary in Malaysia. The charter member of the 8th club in Kuala Lumpur. So it really has a significance of the international. When it came that way, I joined Lynn Club after I retired from the Navy, and they were having really difficult times to maintain their membership. Had a PDG that worked with them for almost 2 years, trying all kinds of things. We couldn't get membership above 17, 18 people. And they met at Glen Haven Mall. And super location. And couldn't figure it out. They did an analysis, and it really is very true when we think about the clubs now. Those who had left, 3 out of 4 who had left the club were because of job transfers. And we had no retirees. So it's all junior management moving up. And so that was a sort of a lesson learned about the dynamics of a new club. And then when that closed, Joe gave me a free pass for a breakfast. I couldn't pass up something free. So here I am.
And then Jan joined us in 91. Jan?
Okay. This is an interesting one. Highlights, lowlights. I wrestled with whether to mention this, and I'm going to go do it. John Moore is my sponsor. Our sons were in the Boy Scout troop together. That's how we got to know each other. And I think I mentioned a weak moment that my dad was a lifelong Rotarian. And he said, well, come on over to our club. This is just as I was retiring in the Navy. And so John brought me by and in as a prospective member. And that went nicely. And the following week, for some reason, John may remember, it may have been sudden or all of a sudden, John wasn't here. And so I came in by myself, checked in a normal fashion. And I'm not sure just what went on though in those few minutes we were socializing and such. But when I went through the breakfast line, got my breakfast, and came back and looked for a place to sit down, every table except one was filled. That one table didn't have anybody at it. So I wound up sitting at the table right over there, all by myself. It was a visiting Rotarian from the Norfolk Club who came in a little bit late, and he sat down with me, so we chit-chatted. But that gave me a a not very positive feeling about things. As a matter of fact, I even thought about, is this the right place?
Yeah.
I called John after that and explained, and everything was up. Everything went fine after that. They swarmed on me when I came back. I want to pass around, I've got the 1999 roster. You'll see the turnover, those it was. I'm going to pass around, we'll start right here with Denise.
Yes, yes.
And then just one other quickly. And then once that happened, then I get plunged into things. I think I was made the sergeant at arms about the third meeting after that. And then the newsletter editor on top of that. And at that point, Charlie was the president at that point, and he insisted that the newsletter editor be at the board meetings to get all that breaking news into the newsletter. And Bob Hurd's secretary, Nancy, was the one that typed up the newsletter. We were back at that point. Yep.
Jim, we used to call you Clark Kent. Clark Kent.
Right. Yeah, Clark Kent. And then final item, there was some real juggling where people like Bill Ferguson couldn't assume the presidency because he got transferred. And so people moved up suddenly. And I recall Dick Gresham and Joe at a board meeting, and Dick mentioned something about the mop. Joe said, "What's the mop?" He had no idea about the manual procedure, even though he was right there and moving in, I guess, into the presidency or close to it. And for a guy that didn't know the mop, that goes on to be on the Council of Legislation in Evanston, and now where he is, you've come a long way, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. You can see you get started, and we love having new members because they can fill slots. Our young President David is a good example. As I mentioned, late 80s, we're having women come into the club. We did have a lady come in the late 80s. And it was unique, she crossed the line. And then in 1992, we had a very, very significant event happen. And we had a new lady come in, Cece Tucker.
All right.
Cece, you want to say a word or two about your first year here?
Thank you. First thing I want to do is correct something. I was not the first black in this class, in this club. I would like to see that roster that you have passed on, because there was a woman here when I arrived.
Yvonne Manning.
Huh?
Yvonne Manning.
That's right. Yvonne was the person.
Wow.
And she left here and went, I think, to Suffolk. And then from there, I think she went to Newport News.
Newport News, Human Resources. Yes.
Right. So I've seen this statement before, and it is incorrect.
No, I'm glad you brought it up. We will change it today.
Okay. It would have been great if I could have remained there. How did I get in this club? Well, when I went to Old Dominion in 1991, the president was Dr. Cook. And he said to me, it's important that you get involved in community and community groups. He was a Rotarian at the time and belonged to the club in Norfolk. But he went with me to all of the local Rotary clubs, helping me find a good feel for where I was going to land. And it turns out that Chester Long got a hold of me, and the rest is history. I was only maybe about 10 or 15 minutes, and I still am, away from this place, which made it a great place to be. And I would like to say that I also sponsored another African American, Jeff Capel, if you will recall. I was so disappointed when he had to stop coming, and that's because of his schedule. It's very hard if you are a coach, for example, to make all these meetings and makeups and what have you. Dr. Cook eventually did the same thing, couldn't keep up. But Jeff Capel's father was a district governor in North Carolina, somewhere in North Carolina. And so I thought that would be great. His father even came here.
He installed Jeff, I think,
That's
isn't
right,
he?
that's correct. And I have enjoyed being here. I have often said I need to quit, I need to stop, because I can't come to these events that we have because of conflicts with my schedule at Old Dominion. And somebody told me not too long ago that I had a reputation of not showing up. But I want you all to know that it's not anything that I just lie in bed and say, oh, I'm not. But it's because I have things that I have to do. I can't sometimes make this meeting and that at the university. And of course, that's where my allegiance is at this point. So, not to say that I don't have loyalty here, but I have to do what I have to do.
Sure.
So please understand, and I don't want to quit.
We don't
We're
want
not gonna let
you.
you.
We don't want you. We'll come get you, CC.
Retired, you know.
Pardon?
Retire.
How about that? I don't want to retire.
CC.
I don't know how the rest of you feel, those of you who are still working and whatever, but for me, this is what I love to do, and if the university will continue to have me, I'm going to be there. My children are begging me to quit. We'll see, but right now, I don't want to do that.
Before you sit down, for those who were here that day, you gave a very stirring
Yeah.
presentation on Black History Month. If anyone was here today would say that it wasn't dry in this room, nor was anybody that moved to motivation. And may I say, if they've been in attendance, I'll never forget that as long as I've read that.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And that was a very special day for those who were not here. And it would be so nice if you could do that again and record it. That was history
Yes.
that we needed to hear, CC. So you can hear this is such a family. I mean, these folks are talking. We've been doing breakfast for at least 20 years together, every Friday. We've seen our kids grow, go off to college. We've had spouses get sick. We've had spouses pass away. This has become a family and support group for a lot of us whose families are not active as we would like to be. So the club has really evolved. The next new young person that came in was a young lady also. All of a sudden, women are coming to Hampton Roads breakfast. Mary Lou Moore.
Yeah, and actually I need to correct that too.
She's not a woman.
I was actually the second woman, I was here before Cece. I was the second woman to join the club after Merle.
Okay.
So that was about the same time that Chan joined is when I joined.
Right.
So it was the second woman, so there were a lot of men. I was invited by Mike Harris, an architect. Used to being with lots of men because as an engineer, I mean, all my classes were all men. Most places I work are all men. Like to report, like today, half our office is women. But yeah, I joined back then. Really warm welcome. I had no problem. I guess one of the first things I got involved in was I was asked to do the programs with one other member. We alternated months. And I didn't realize how much work that was. Making sure that the speaker comes every week and making sure everybody enjoys themselves. But I really appreciate everyone that works on the programs after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Lou. And Mary Lou, as most others here, worked her way up, became a president a number of years later. In fact, Mary Lou was the first woman, lady president of the club, I believe.
And we just recognized with Avenues of Service Award at last awards bank.
Okay, right.
It's quite a distinction.
I think that was the first time the outgoing president kissed the incoming president.
In front of her.
Paul, you have nothing to worry about.
But you do. But Mary, on the other hand.
That's your,
I On that same line, when Fred and Nancy Jocelyn were in the club, we were kidding him about sleeping with the club president. We've had some great times. And the nice thing about this today is everybody here that joined it in the 90s is a good talker. And one more, Don Meadows. I know you got a few words, Don.
Well, I guess just real quick, George Smith, before we joined, we was in the staffing business, same thing as Richard Brinkley is. He was our competitor, and George Smith walked in, wondered if I wanted to sell my business. I said, well, no, I don't. He said, well, how about joining Rotary? So, and I had been in lines, and that wasn't a real positive experience because I didn't like to sell brooms. But so I did come, and I joined, and just kind of real quick, kind of reflect, what's happened to me from joining is, number one, shortly after I joined, I had a kind of a run-in with my broker, and I met Pete. And Pete's been my broker you sent me a flower that day, Pete, how many years was it?
20 years.
27 years. And then, right after that, my wife and I decided to buy a sailboat. And we had catamarans and things like that. We bought a monohull, and was down at Rebel Marine, and we'd gone out one night, and we was coming in, I was trying to back it in. We just got the boat, and I couldn't back it in. I was having all sorts of trouble. And there was some guy on there just screaming at me, do this, do that, do this, do that. I said, who in the world is this? I come in, and who do you think it was? It was John Moore. So John and I have been sailing for a number of years. So shortly thereafter, Steve Waters said, Don, I heard you had some problems backing your boat. Let me take you out and teach you how to back it. Steve did. I brought Steve into the club. Then we had the opportunity to sell our business, thank God. And so Richard, who was my competitor, became a good friend of mine. And so we invited him to join the club also. So Rotary's definitely kind of had a big impact in my life. And there's a couple other things. One thing I do want to mention, I remember that when Chester became president, he called me and said, Don, is there any one particular thing you'd like when we work? And I said, change the dang breakfast. I'm tired of these cheese and eggs. Well, this morning I think what we have, cheese and eggs. but Rotary's been great. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, Don. In those days, too, we only had one per profession. There was one lawyer, one banker, one military, and I remember when a second real estate agent wanted to come into the club, there was a big question. Remember, Ken, Jim Tinkham was concerned about that.
Yeah.
So real estate was commercial, residential. Now you take banking, and there are all different levels of banking. Also, at that time, you had to be mid-management and up. There was a big difference in ties were the standard at that time, and now there are a few old farts that are still wearing a tie.
I take exception to that.
Then there are the bow ties also. We had another Navy retiree come right about that point, and that was Bill Pine. Bill?
How about that? In 30 years of being in the Navy, I probably moved 14 times. Each time you moved, you tried to get buckled into your community and do something for them, but you knew you were leaving in 2 years. So my attempts to help out with the community was limited to Boy Scouts and T-ball and little kids soccer and stuff like that. So when it came time to retire, Chan and Sid Ellis, if y'all remember Sid Ellis, were encouraging me to, when I got out of the Navy, to get into an organization where I could do a little more for the community, and I felt that was pretty meaningful, but I didn't want to waste my time. So I looked the club over a lot. What do you do? How effective are you? Is it just a breakfast fellowship kind of a thing, or are we going to get stuff done? And I thought this was the club to invest my time in. Since then, I ran programs for 3 years off and on. I ran a bowl-a-thon all by myself one time. For 7 months, my whole second bedroom was nothing but bowl-a-thon. And I appreciate the fact we use committees now. I should have thought of that. I've done the Paint Your Heart Out. I've been involved with walking the streets, the putt-putt. The things that this club does that makes us what we are is what I wanted to do. So I feel I can do something that was meaningful and lasting. I mean, take a look at what we're doing with polio. I take personal pride in the fact that we're winning this thing. We're going to do it. So 2 things come to mind that I thought I would share with you. One of them was I was sitting on a park bench in a little bitty town in Portugal with my wife. And I looked down and there was a Rotary logo on the bench. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Last January, I was in Oaxaca, Mexico, and this old guy goes by on a wheelchair. Logo on the side of the wheelchair. And there's a fellow with a big palm tree frond, and he's in the morning early, sweeping the plaza, getting ready for the next day's events. I said, how you doing? I mean, the guy's got tattered shoes, he didn't even have a broom, using a palm tree, and he says, I'm blessed. So that's how I feel about Rotary.
Thank you, Bill. And Phil and Gary, 15 years from now, you'll be doing these same talks. So stay active, stay busy, it's great. In 1997, we had 2 members join at that time that were still active. There's been a lot of people, as Bill said, that have moved away or transferred or something like that. But these are the people that are still active. Trish Rosser joined us at that time. She was our video connection. Up to that point, we were using, we have a little photo book of all of our members. But also the excitement about the Hampton Roads Club spread as far as Smithfield. And Jim Hodges drove all the way in to join us. Jim?
Well, I too was a target of a guy's name keeps coming up in here, and that was John Moore. John and I were working together. He worked for a company over here in Virginia Beach, and I was running a division of a company out in Maryland that was here in Virginia Beach, and we were working on a contract or procurement we were getting ready to go after. And one day, John just says, what do you know about Rotary? And it kind of caught me off guard. We'd been heavy into the work and everything. And I said, well, that's something where a bunch of old farts get together for a dinner or something like that. And he said, well, we're not all old farts. And he probably doesn't remember that, but I do. But I have forever been grateful to John for asking me about joining this club. I think that over the years that I've been associated with the club, probably there are 2 things that stick out in my mind. There are an awful lot of great things that we've done as a club that it's been really great to be a part of that. But the 2 things that really stand out in my mind is that, first of all, after I joined the club, when I would come into work on Friday down at Virginia Beach, and I had about 150, 200 people working for me at the time, every now and then I'd get a comment from one of them that said, why is it you're so damn happy on Friday mornings? And it was always because after I left Smithfield, I came here to the club, and then I went to the office. And I'd never thought about it that way, but it was a pick-me-up. And then when I had another guy working for me several years later, and I was talking to him about Rotary, he said, you know, I notice on Friday mornings when you come in, you're always upbeat and everything is just great and all this, and I'm kind of thinking, God, Monday through Thursday, I must be a little but at any rate, Jim Orlando made the same comment, and of course, he's a member now. But the other thing that probably will stick with me forever was having the opportunity to go to Rotary International for the 100th anniversary in Chicago, and there were several of us in the room here that were there. It was an incredible experience. Jim Jones and I roomed together, and we rode a train in every day to McCormick's Place, and on that train there were Rotarians from something like 60 or 70, maybe even more than that, countries throughout the world that we got to know and got to talk to. When you were there at the events, some of the things that you saw Rotary clubs were doing just made such an impression on us, that on me anyway, that as I said, I feel like Bill, I feel really blessed that that I was asked to join Rotary, and most importantly, with this club.
Jim, and thank each of the people that spoke. We've run time. Real quick.
Okay, real quick. It's a story about humility, and a story I often tell, but I never hesitate to repeat a story. And it's not about you, Glenn Allen, so I don't worry about it. But if you look at you see when Charlie Firestone was president, and you look further down, it's Joe Mulcairn, the first adopt a highway chair. And at that time, Rotary was big in the environment, and the club decided to take care of that with Dr. Highway. I got a phone call at home, Charlie Firestone's on, he said, I'm dire straits. He said, you're the 6th person I call. I need somebody to chair the Dr. Highway committee. I said, gee, that's fine, I'm very flattered. Hung up and I said, wow, I wonder who the other 5 people were. First.
It's interesting, Chan and some others and Mark Slaughter were very helpful in putting this history together of things that happened, projects. But notice everything talked about today was interaction and people and friendship, and that's what this really part is.
Steve, can you take just a moment to remember our members who have known, we've got about 6 that started with the club and kind of now we're just think about the moment in silence to honor their memory.
Do you remember? I remember
There-
Mike
there-
Harris,
There's several in this book.
Jim Tinkham,
Don Trubolo, Drilling, Don Drilling,
Andrea.
The architect that brought you in?
Mike Harris.
Madison. Was it Bob Madison or Madison?
Matt, yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, yeah.
Scott Matheson.
Jack.
Scott.
Jack.
Jack.
Yeah, Dave Logan.
Yeah, let's pause for a moment. Thanks, folks. We'll wait this.
One more thing to do. Pete, got the, got that ticket?
You gotta pick the number.
Come on, Pete.
Important stuff.
Pete.
What are you doing?
Pete, it's gotta be mine. Come on, Pete.
All right, here we go. 418.
418.
All right.
I got 419.
All right, folks, right here.
Remember one guy's name.
See you all